Have you ever wondered why there is 12 days of Christmas? Where the sun is turning when it turns? You have probably heard the expression, the reasons for the seasons, referring to the Christian meaning of Christmas. Even though there is nothing in the Bible or anywhere else indicating that Jesus was born in December. These and more questions is what I want to shed light on in this Christmas, or rather Yule special, New Year, Midwinter Solstice, Merry, whatever it is you're celebrating. First, I want to show you something that you might not know if you're not from Scandinavia. The English word Yule are referring to the ancient Germanic festival for celebrating the old and the new year. What you might not know is that Yule also is generally what Christmas translates to in Norwegian,
God jul,
Swedish,
God jul,
and Danish.
glädelig jul,
In Icelandic, it's called
glädelig jul,
in Finnish,
hyvää joulua,
and in Estonian,
Häid jõule.
according to the Norwegian Wikipedia page about Yule, it is the Old English word for the midwinter solstice. The question then is it even the same celebration? The thing is, in Norway even Christians call it Yule. Julekvelden, Yule evening, the 24th, is the main event also for Christians. That is when Yule meal is shared in the family and the presents are opened and so on. And then on the 25th, those who feel like it can go to church. Well, in fact, there is a mass on the 24th also, but this is not, as I understand it, the main Christian event for the church. The main event is on the 25th, which is Jesus' birthday. At least for me, when I was a child and was dragged to church once a year, it was on the 25th of December. In my opinion, it is not the same celebration. Yule on the evening of 24th and Christmas on the 25th is in my mind two different events. The celebration of Jesus' birthday has been placed at this date several decades or years after Jesus' life and is therefore not the reason for the season. There are several hypotheses as to why Christmas was placed on this particular date, but it seems that it stems all the way back to the 2nd century after Christ. Ironically, this is then before the calendar year 0 was set at Christ's birth year. Year 0 is a hypothetical, there is no year 0 of course, it's just a figure of speech. The Anno Domini dating system, Year of Our Lord, was introduced by a guy called Dionysius Exiguus to enumerate the years in his Easter table in 525, and obviously it has caught on since now everybody is using it. The Julian calendar, which our present-day calendar, the Gregorian, was built on, was introduced by Julius Caesar in 45 BCE. He set that time to 0, of course. Calendars are complex to work with. But it's worth to notice that the Julian calendar started with the 1st of January already in 45 BCE. Interestingly, the Julian calendar is still used today by the Eastern Orthodox Church. So the reason why Russians and other Orthodox countries are celebrating Christmas on the 7th of January Gregorian is not because they think Jesus was born on the 7th of January. They too agree that Jesus was born on the 25th of December, it's just that they don't agree on which day that is. The Julian calendar has a 13-day lag compared to the Gregorian. The 13-day discrepancy is because of a tiny mistake in the Julian calendar. In the Julian calendar, 1 year was set to 365.25 days, so there is a leap day every 4 years. The Gregorian calendar is set to 365.2425, and It also corrected the 13 days drift that had accumulated over the more than 1600 years from 45 BCE to 1582, the time when Pope Gregory XIII introduced it. The actual solar year value is 365.24219 days, meaning the Julian calendar drifts with 1 day every 128 years. The question I bet many of you have on your mind right now is why the hell was it so damn important to correct this tiny error? What I'm asking right now is why is it so important that the first day of the year, the 1st of January, is exactly that day every year? This is where the 12 days of Christmas comes in. I'm not joking right now. If you count from the midwinter solstice day, the 21st of December, including that day, until the 1st of January, that is 12 days. Feel free to pause the video and count on your fingers. And this, my friends, is the 12 days of Christmas, or rather of Yule. I hope you are scratching your head right now. Why is it important that the new year is starting 12 days after midwinter solstice? Or rather 11 days plus 1. Remember, we are also counting in the solstice day. Well, the reason for this is that these 11 days is the difference between the solar and the lunar year. A lunar year is exactly 354.36707 days, and a solar year is, remember, 365.24219 days, making the difference exactly 10.87512 days. Now, if you measure when exactly the solstice day is, you can always know when New Year's Day is by counting to 12 days. You can easily measure this with nothing else but a stick in the ground. And now I will answer the question, where is the sun turning when it's turning? If you do the stick experiment, what you want to see is where the shadow of the stick falls at sunrise. The sun will, due to the wobble of the Earth's rotation, I'm thinking about the wobble that causes the seasons, the sun will rise at a slightly different location every morning. During fall and early winter, the sunrise will move north on the eastern horizon until the 20th of December, when it seems to stop for 3 days until the 22nd. The location of the sunrise will then turn and move south again until midsummer solstice, and so on in a year-long cycle. So it's not really the sun that is turning, but the sunrise. Personally, I think the sun is turning is a perfectly fine way to saying it, if the context is known or can be clarified. I want to mention something more about the moon and the lunar calendar. If you observe the moon on the 1st of January, take a picture. The next time the moon looks exactly like that, the same face, is 1 lunar month from the 1st. A lunar month is approximately 29.5 days. For simplicity, one can alternate between counting 29 and 30 days for 12 months. This adds up to 1 lunar year. 29.5 times 12 is 354 days, and that will in 2022 take us from the 1st of January to the 20th of December, the day before midwinter solstice. It will of course be the 20th of December every year except for leap years. 354 days plus 11 days is 365 days. So you see, in this simplified system there is actually 11 days until New Year. So amazingly, without almost anybody knowing about it, the Gregorian calendar takes both the solar and the lunar calendar into account. except for that the 11 extra days are added to each month, making the months alternating between 30 and 31 days instead of 29 and 30. And then February is used to adjust, with just 28 days normally and 29 days in leap years. So now you know why there is 12 days of Christmas. It is the 11 days plus including the first day difference between solar and lunar year. And you know where the sun is turning when it's turning. It is the sunrise that is turning south on the eastern horizon at midwinter solstice and north at the midsummer solstice. But what about the reason for the season? Well, here's my thoughts about it. One of the important aspects historically for keeping a calendar has to do with agriculture and production. One can, both in history and still today, think of a year in terms of one production year. The further one lives from the equator, the more important this is. Here in Norway we have 3 to 5 months of freezing and snow every year, but even a longer period where there is almost no food that can be grown. Especially historically, when everybody was depending on their own production for food to survive, one had to plan ahead. So one had to think of the whole year as a production year for everybody to survive the winter, including the old and children. The year was divided into 4 main phases. In my opinion, this is what this symbol stands for, the Sun Cross. First was the planning phase where equipment was kept, prepared or produced. Then was the planting and growing phase, followed by the harvest phase and at last the storing and distribution phase. Before one started the whole cycle over again. The spokes in the wheel represent in my mind the solstices and the equinoxes and the 4 phases of the year. And there you have it. That is the reason for the season, as simple as that. Midwinter is just the most practical time of the year to transition from one year to another. I will end it all with some of my thoughts about the gift culture. Why do we give gifts at Christmas? My thought is that this was part of the redistribution culture. In communities where people are strongly interdependent on each other for survival, each production unit, a farm, gave from their production overshoot to each of the others. This would serve as a guarantee so that if, let's say, one farm had been unlucky with the production one year, this would not lead to tragedy for all of them. They wouldn't have starved to death. Typical traditional gifts have been food, clothing and tools, things that people need for survival. And also within families, some parents earn more and some have more children and so on, to guarantee that all the children have what they need and something nice to look forward to. All the extended family can chip in without it becoming embarrassing for the parents that have less to give. As a child, I liked hard packages. That meant toys and later gadgets, you know. But today a pair of home-knitted socks is my favorite, besides beer, home-brewed beer. Or other stuff that can be worn or consumed. Everything else I would rather buy for myself. I will end this by giving you a very important advice for Christmas presents. Never buy a hammer for a carpenter or a fishing rod for a fisherman and so on. Don't give something to someone that they are the expert on. Try to give something that you know more about than them, even if this means that they don't get what they wish for. Remember the reason for the season, folks. God jul and a good new production year.